There is a place in the world where ice is not only scenery, it was once a road, a source of life, a memory, and sometimes the line between survival and disappearing. Look more closely at this white land. From far away, this place can look like an Arctic dream. Enormous glaciers, the northern lights, colorful houses sitting right at the edge of the sea, and a beauty so cold it almost doesn't feel real. But for the people who call this place home, ice is not just something to look at. Ice decides when they can travel. The sea decides when they can go out fishing. The weather decides when goods arrive, when flights take off, and when a sick person can be carried somewhere safer. Here, many towns are not connected to one another by road. A trip that might seem ordinary anywhere else can depend on a boat, a small plane, a helicopter, a snowmobile, or a dog sled. But what makes this place special is not only its isolation, it is the question growing quietly beneath that ice. When the ice melts faster, where do the winter roads go? When the sea changes, what will the fishermen live on? When young people leave the small communities, who will hold on to the language, the memory, and the Inuit way of life that has survived across many generations? This is Greenland. And the real question is not how cold this land is, how far away it is, or how beautiful it is. The question is this: what will people hold on to when the very thing that once protected them, the ice, is changing right before their eyes? From a map, the truth about Greenland becomes clearer. This is the largest island in the world, lying between the North Atlantic and the Arctic Ocean, closer to Canada than to Europe, yet part of the Kingdom of Denmark. On paper, Greenland is immense, but most of that immensity is not meant for people. About 80% of this land is covered in ice. That means communities are not spread evenly across the island. They cling to narrow coastal strips, where rocky mountains, deep fjords, cold water, and drifting ice form the natural boundaries of life. In many places, you can't simply get in a car and drive from one town to the next. There is no network of roads linking the communities together, the way there is in most of the modern world. Distance here is not measured only in miles. It is measured in flight schedules, in boat schedules, in the strength of the wind, in fog, in rough seas, in ice that is thick or thin, and sometimes in the patience of a whole family waiting for someone to come home. A trip might begin by small plane, or by helicopter, or by boat across the cold sea, or in winter, in some regions, by snowmobile or dog sled along ice routes that local people have long known well. But if the weather changes, every plan can come to a stop. A shipment can arrive late. A medical appointment may have to be postponed. A visit to a relative can become a luxury. And a small community can feel very clearly that it doesn't only live far from the world, It lives in a place that the world can only reach when nature allows it. That isolation works its way into every small detail. It is there in the price of an item on a shop shelf, in the way people stock up on food, in the fact that a serious illness may require an entire flight just to be treated, and in the question young people carry. If they want to study further, work in a different field, or live closer to more opportunity, will they have to leave the place where they were born? And when geography has shaped a life this dependent on ice, sea, and weather, the next question becomes impossible to avoid. In a place where nature decides the roads, the work, and even the sense of safety, how have people learned to live alongside it? In Greenland, nature does not stay still outside the window. It steps into life. It decides when people can go out to sea, when they have to stay home, when a shipment can reach the harbor, and when a journey that might seem ordinary becomes too dangerous to continue. Ice is the first character. To outsiders, ice can be a spectacular sight. Enormous blue ice cliffs, icebergs drifting slowly across the sea, white expanses stretching all the way to the horizon. But for the people who live here, ice is not only something to look at. It was once the road, the hunting season, a sign of the weather, the thing that told you how far you could go today and where you should stop. When the ice is thick enough, it opens up space. When the ice is thin, it becomes a warning. And when the ice is no longer as steady as it was in older memory, the things that once felt familiar begin to feel uncertain too. The sea is the second character. The sea feeds many communities, with fish, with seafood, with work at the harbor, with boats coming back in the cold. But the sea is never entirely gentle. It can open up a day of work. It can also shut down every plan with strong wind, fog, high waves, or drifting ice along a familiar route. Here, people don't ask about the weather as a social habit. They ask about the weather to know how they can live today. Winter brings long darkness, snow, wind, thick clothing, tightly closed doors, cold roads, and the feeling that everything has to slow down. Summer brings longer light, more open water, more boats moving about, more visitors appearing. But summer also reveals another question. If the ice retreats faster, what changes along with it? In Greenland, nature is both a source of life and a limit. It gives people fish to eat, a sea to travel, ice to remember, a landscape to be proud of. But it also demands patience, preparation, and a humility that easier places may have forgotten. And perhaps it is precisely because nature is so powerful here that the human history of this place is not a story of conquering the land. It is a story of learning to listen to it. The history of Greenland did not begin with large cities. It began with adaptation. Before this land became part of the modern political map, many waves of Arctic peoples had already passed through and lived here. They didn't leave behind wide avenues or grand monuments. What they left behind was more important than that. The knowledge of how to read the ice, how to listen to the sea, how to understand the animals, how to predict the seasons, and how to survive in an environment where even a small mistake could carry a very heavy cost. In a place like Greenland, history was not written through conquest. It was written through knowing when to move and when to stop. Later, Norse settlers from Scandinavia came to southern Greenland. They built houses, raised livestock, put up churches, and tried to bring a familiar European way of life to the edge of the Arctic. But eventually, those communities disappeared, leaving behind ruins and a question that still echoes today. How far can people impose their own way of living on a land this unforgiving? Meanwhile, the ancestors of the Inuit learned a different way. Not to fight against the ice, but to live with it. Not to see the sea only as a barrier, but to see it as food, as a road, as memory, and as an extension of the community itself. Today, Greenland has schools, airports, internet, self-governance, and modern towns. But the past has not disappeared. It still lives in the language, in the food, in the fishing boats, in the dog sleds, in the stories of the elders, and in the way a child is taught to respect the weather before stepping outside. So the question in Greenland today is not only how people in the past managed to survive. The larger question is this: if ice was once the road, the livelihood, and the memory of the community, then in everyday life now, what are the people of Greenland holding on to as that very foundation begins to change? A morning in Greenland does not begin with the sound of busy traffic. It begins with the wind. With a weak light falling onto colorful rooftops, with a door opening into the cold, with the sound of boats out at the harbor, the distant call of sled dogs, or the footsteps of children walking along a snow-covered road to school. Here, before starting the day, people usually look outside first. Not only to see whether the weather is good or bad, but to know whether today can be lived according to plan. A fisherman checks the wind, the surface of the sea, and the ice before deciding to head out. A transport worker waits for news about the flight. A family checks whether the goods will arrive on time. A patient in a small village may have to hope the weather is good enough for a transfer to a place with better medical care. Things that seem perfectly normal anywhere else, in Greenland, always come with one quiet question. Will nature allow it today? In the coastal towns, modern work and traditional livelihood stand side by side. Some people work in schools, hospitals, shops, government offices, hotels, or tourism services. Others work at the harbor, in fish processing plants, on fishing boats, or in jobs that depend directly on the sea. When a boat returns to shore, it doesn't only carry fish. It carries the income of a family, a meal, and the reason a small community continues to hold on through another winter. Children in Greenland grow up between two worlds. On one side is the classroom, the internet, smartphones, global music, and dreams that reach beyond the small town. On the other is the mother tongue, family meals, the stories of grandparents, the sea outside the door, the ice in the fjord, and the memory of winter roads that once connected people to one another. But as they grow older, they also come to understand something early. The future may be somewhere else. If they want to study further, work in a specialized field, or live closer to more opportunity, they may have to leave. And when a young person leaves a small community, what they carry with them is not only a bag, it is a piece of the language, a piece of memory, and a piece of the question of whether they will ever come back. Inside the home, life is held together by very practical things: heating, electricity, water, fuel, stored food, clothing thick enough for the worst days, and the ability to prepare for stretches of bad weather. A meal might include local fish, traditionally hunted food in the places that still maintain those practices, but also expensive imported goods from very far away. On the shop shelves, every item carries the price of distance. A bag of vegetables, a carton of milk, a warm jacket, a package of medicine. All of it has already crossed the sea, traveled by plane, moved through shipping schedules and weather, before reaching the buyer. By the end of the day, when the lights inside the small houses begin to glow against the snow, Greenland feels more intimate. Families sit together. Adults talk about the fish, the goods, the weather, the work. Children do their homework. World news enters the room through a phone screen. But outside the window, the sea is still there. The ice is still there. The wind is still there. And the great question of Greenland no longer lives in distant history. It lives in every morning, every meal, every boat trip, every child getting ready to grow up. As the ice and the sea are changing, what will everyday life hold on to, so that this community can still remain itself? Culture in Greenland does not live only in traditional costumes, old songs, or the images visitors see during a few short days. It lives in daily life, in the language spoken at home, in the way a family prepares a meal, in the way the elderly tell stories about winters long past. in the way a child learns that the sea out there is not just water, and the ice out there is not just snow frozen over the surface of the fjord. For the Greenlandic Inuit, identity is not something that stands still in the past. It has traveled through many generations in very specific ways. Through knowing how to read the weather, how to share food, how to respect the animals, how to remember the names of places along the coast, and how to understand that people never truly live apart from the world around them. The Greenlandic language, Kalaallisut, is a deeply rooted part of that feeling. A language not only for communication, but for naming the world. Within its words are traces of the sea, of ice, of the land's shape, of family bonds, of a way of life formed in the Arctic. When a child learns the mother tongue, they are not only learning how to speak, they are learning to see this land through the eyes of their own community. But a language needs people who speak it, and a culture needs people who live with it every day. And that is why the question of the younger generation matters so much. If they leave their small villages to study, to work, or to find a life with more access, what will they take with them? Which language will they keep inside their future families? And when they return, if they return, will the Greenland inside them still look like the Greenland their grandparents knew? Food tells the same story, only more quietly. A meal with local fish, seafood, or traditionally hunted food in the communities that still maintain those practices is not only about eating, it is the memory of long winters. The way people learned not to waste what nature allowed them to have. A reminder that in this remote place, food has always been tied to effort, to weather, and to community. Dog sledding is not only an Arctic image. The dogs were once transportation, companions, part of the skill of living on ice. In the regions that still keep this tradition, the sound of the dogs, the harness lines, the sled, and the winter journeys are not only for tourism or beautiful memory, they are tied to a way of moving, a way of hunting, a way of understanding space. But as the ice thins, as snowmobiles and modern vehicles become more common, as life changes, that tradition faces a difficult question. How does a skill survive when the environment that once needed it is no longer what it was? In the small communities, the sense of belonging is often held together by very ordinary things. A family gathering, a warm kitchen, an elder naming the stretch of water outside the window, a child running along a familiar snowy road, a long coffee shared between neighbors. A story retold, not to make the past sound better than it was, but to remind the next generation where they come from. Perhaps the culture of Greenland does not survive because it has been preserved in one piece. It survives because each generation finds a new way to carry it forward. But if ice was once the place where that culture was practiced, if the sea was once where that memory was passed on, then the next question cannot be avoided. As the economy changes, as work changes, as the ways of making a living change, what will that identity be nourished by in the future? In Greenland, the economy begins with the sea. Not the sea as a beautiful backdrop in a photograph, but the sea where people head out into the cold, where boats return with fish, where small harbors light up before the town has truly woken, and where one day of bad weather can change the income of an entire family. For many coastal communities, fish is not only food. Fish is work, wages, a processing plant, an export shipment. And the reason a small town still has people who choose to stay, even when winter is long, goods are expensive, and opportunity is scarce compared to larger places. When a boat leaves the harbor, it carries more than a few fishermen. It carries the cost of fuel, the worry about weather, the expectations of the family left behind, and the very real question of what the sea will give them today. If the sea is generous, the community has work. If the sea is silent, or too dangerous to go out on, the uncertainty doesn't stay out in the fjord. It follows people into every home. Alongside fishing, traditional hunting still holds meaning in many places, especially for food, for memory, and for the sense of connection to the environment. But Greenland today is no longer a world sustained only by old skills. People work in schools, hospitals, shops, government offices, transport, construction, tourism services, and other modern jobs. Part of life runs on the sea. Part of it runs on a monthly salary. Part of it runs on support from outside. And another part is placing its hope in tourism. Visitors come to see glaciers, northern lights, whales, dog sleds, coastal villages, and the feeling of Arctic remoteness. For some young people, tourism opens a door, working as a guide, driving boats, running guest houses, selling handmade crafts, telling local stories in their own voice. But that opportunity comes with a difficult question. Who will control the story of Greenland? The local people, or the gaze from outside? When culture becomes something that visitors come searching for, is it respected more? Or is it turned into an image that is easier to sell than a real life is to live? The cost of living makes that question heavier. In a place where goods have to cross the sea, travel by plane, pass through shipping schedules and weather, every item on the shelf carries the price of distance. Imported food, building materials, fuel, medicine, winter clothing, nothing arrives here simply. So making a living in Greenland is not only a story about earning money. It is a story about the right to stay. If the sea changes, if the fish move, if tourism grows but doesn't share the opportunity evenly, if costs keep pushing daily life higher, then what will the people of Greenland rely on to keep their communities alive? And as a new economy steps onto old ground, what will be developed? And what is at risk of being left behind? But the more connected Greenland becomes with the world, the harder the questions it has to face. Because the greatest tension here is not only the cold, it is not only the distance, it is the change. The change in the ice, in the sea, in the work people do, in the younger generation, and in the way the outside world looks at the Arctic. Climate change is the first and most visible tension. For outsiders, melting ice may be a symbolic image on an environmental broadcast, a number, a chart, a beautiful but sorrowful piece of footage. But for the people of Greenland, melting ice is very concrete. It can be a winter route that is no longer safe, a hunting trip that has to be canceled, a dog sled team used less often than before, an elder realizing that the ice of their youth no longer returns the way it once did. When the ice changes, life does not change at a single point. It spreads into the way people travel, into how they earn a living, into how they teach their children to read the weather, into how a community remembers itself. Fishing is also facing new pressures. If the sea warms, if fish species shift, if the catching season becomes harder to predict, people don't only lose a familiar work schedule, they may lose the stability of their income, the trust in knowledge passed down over many generations, and part of the reason a coastal community continues to exist at all. But the complicated truth is that change doesn't only bring loss, it also brings opportunity. Retreating ice may open new shipping routes. Growing tourism may create jobs. Infrastructure projects may make travel easier. Mineral resources may promise a more self-reliant economy. New airports, new ports, new services may make Greenland feel less distant from the rest of the world. But development always comes with a difficult question. Who benefits the most? The local people or the investors from outside? Who will control the story of this land? The communities that live here or the markets that want to turn the Arctic into a destination, a resource, a new economic opportunity? Tourism can help young people stay, but tourism can also turn culture into a performance. Extracting resources can bring money, but it can also place a fragile environment at risk. Connection with the world can open the future, but it can also make some people realize that leaving is sometimes easier than staying. And beneath all of it is a quieter question. What does Greenland want to become in this century? A more modern, more prosperous, more self-governing land? Or a place that has to give up too much in order to be called developed? Perhaps the real tension is not between the past and the future. It is in how Greenland steps into the future without cutting itself off from everything that has helped people survive here for thousands of years. Because if ice was once the road, if the sea was once the livelihood, and if culture was once the thread holding the community together, then as all three of those things are changing, the people of Greenland will have to ask themselves one thing. What is the one thing that cannot be? Perhaps the hardest thing for outsiders to understand is this. Why do people stay? Why stay in a place where winter is long, goods are expensive, travel is difficult, work depends on the sea, and the future sometimes begins with a flight away from home? Why does a young person, after seeing larger cities, still remember the sound of wind at the harbor? Why does an elder still look at the ice in front of the village as though looking at a part of their own life? The answer is not only habit, it is not only family. It is something deeper. The feeling that this land has taught people how to understand the world. In Greenland, the sea is not only a place to fish. It is where parents once went out before dawn, where meals began, where a community learned to wait, to share, and to live alongside risk. The ice is not only a landscape. It was once a road, a hunting season, a path for dog sleds, the memory of old winters that the elderly still tell their grandchildren about, as though inside those stories is a map of who they are. The colorful rooftops don't only brighten a white landscape. They are where lights come on at the end of the day, where children make noise, where dinner fills the air, where people talk about the weather, the fish, the goods, the flights, the relatives far away, and the question no one can fully answer. Where will the future take this community? Those who leave may carry Greenland with them. In the language, in the food, in the memory of Arctic light, in the longing for a place where life was never easy, but very hard to replace. Those who stay have to accept more trade-offs. Fewer choices, higher costs, harsher weather, and a future that is never entirely certain. But it is within those very trade-offs that the most important thing slowly becomes clear. Greenland doesn't survive only because of ice, or fish, or boats, or dog sleds, or coastal villages. It survives because people still want to belong here. And perhaps, as the ice changes, what the people of Greenland are trying to hold on to is not only an old way of life. It is the feeling that they still know who they are, even as the world around them no longer looks the way it once did. When the last light falls across the small rooftops along the coast, Greenland continues its life. A boat returns to harbor. A child walks along a cold road toward home. A kitchen glows with light in the Arctic darkness. An elder looks out at the water, where the ice was once thicker, more familiar, more certain in memory. And somewhere between the sound of the wind, the sea, the sled dogs, and the voices of people talking inside warm houses, the question of this land still remains. If ice was once the road, the livelihood, and the memory, what is left when the ice changes? Perhaps the answer is not found in a single block of ice, or in a beautiful photograph. It is found in the way people continue to wake up each morning, check the weather, head to the harbor, walk to school, prepare a meal, call a relative far away, teach their children the language of the family, and tell the stories they do not want to disappear. Greenland is not only a land of glaciers and northern lights. It is a place where people have learned to live with limits, with distance, with winter, with the sea, and now, with change. Perhaps places as remote as Greenland remind us that people do not only live by comfort, they also live by memory, community, language, daily work, and the feeling of belonging to a piece of land. So the final question is not how much ice Greenland will have left. It is this: in a changing world, what will people hold on to in order to still recognize themselves? If you want to keep exploring places that are distant, demanding, and rarely told on screen, stay with us for the journeys ahead.